Well, thank you for joining us today with our leadership speaker series. Today we have Steve Wright, VP at Boncom, and we're just so glad that you could join us.
Thanks for having me. This will be fun.
It's going to be really fun. Well, we are talking about advocacy this month, and one of the things that we wanted to show you students is that you don't have to just be a legislator or a lobbyist to advocate, that you can use your talents in many different ways to advocate for good causes. And Steve is an expert in it. He is the VP at Boncom, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what he does, and then we'll go a little bit into his bio.
Terrific. Yeah, I'm a vice president at Boncom, short for Bonneville Communications. We are now celebrating our 50th anniversary, and we believe that we are the originators of the public service announcement. So if you ever see like TV commercials that say, wear your seatbelt, don't use tobacco, don't text message so much, stay off of social media, we're behind a lot of those messages that are trying to help people adopt good behaviors to make their lives just a little bit better.
That's incredible. Well, and we all see those on the freeway, on billboards, and on social media and TV. Well, let's just tell everyone a little bit about you before we get into our questions. So Steve is a professor at BYU. He is also obviously the VP at Boncom, and he's been there. Is it like 15 years that you've been in this industry? 20 years?
Yeah, been in the industry about 15 years, but been at Boncom for about 7 of those.
Okay, awesome. He is a dad of 3, residing in Draper, and in his free time he loves to boat and mountain bike. And before he came into this industry, he was a hotshot with the U.S. Forest Service. Tell the students about that, because they might not know what a hotshot is.
So yeah, before starting my career, when I was coming out of college, I didn't know what to do with myself, like a lot of college students. And so one summer I decided that I was going to sign up to go fight wildfires. And I signed up for the U.S. Forest Service and became part of a national task force that gets sent off to large wildfires to basically dig line and put out fires. So for 3 years, I carried a chainsaw and cut down trees and tried to save the forest.
Well, that's incredible. That is really intense work, is what it sounds like.
It really prepared me for what I do today. You can imagine.
Really prepared you. Well, that's amazing. Well, we're glad to have a little bit of background on you. So tell us how you decided to go into this industry. You graduated from college, 3 years with the hot shots, and then what?
When I was graduating from Brigham Young University, I graduated in advertising, and I knew that I wanted to have some influence for good, in what I did professionally. And originally, I moved to New York City and took a job in Manhattan working for one of the top 3 ad agencies in the world. And I was working on projects like Verizon, Black & Decker, Continental Airlines. And I still remember the day because I thought, I can do something different with my skills. I'm pretty good at this. And I ended up taking a job with an agency here in Salt Lake City and started working on behavior change marketing. And the whole premise to this was, how can we leverage mass media, TV commercials, social media, billboards, whatever it might be, in order to convince people to do something that makes their lives better, And I started working on projects, from like underage drinking prevention to anti-bully initiatives, to water conservation projects, to tobacco cessation, even down to like drug abuse. And I quickly fell in love with Jane that, at the end of the day, I was able to use, my professional skill set, but to create brands and messages that became an alliance across general public in order to help them see not only what the problem was, but how they could solve it long term and shift people's norms that surrounded that in the community.
I love that. I feel like as people not everyone knows that firefighters are a problem, or I was just thinking, as we educate people want to do good in general. If you've educated them on something like what you're doing with these campaigns, you really can change lives. It's amazing. I love that. Okay, well, why don't you tell me about a favorite project that you've done? And then I'd be curious about how you measure the success of a project too. So tell us, why don't we start with your favorite project?
So several years ago, I was approached by a task force here in Utah that Governor Cox helped establish, that entities from the public and private sector have come together to address suicide prevention in Utah. And at that time, I believe we were listed in like the top 5 states in the nation, for individuals who die by suicide. And, we were charged with, we have to make a change. And one of the things we identified right off the bat is like, people just didn't want to talk about suicide. It was a very dark topic. It's a very emotional and scary time, for friends and families. And we wanted to get out in front of this to teach people how to deal with this and then how to prevent it. And from this public-private, conversation, this partnership, Live On Utah was born. And I have to tell you, of all the campaigns I've worked on, this is one that I hold very near and dear, because what we do every day is we try to save lives. And we're out there raising awareness to what the true issue is. What are the catalysts that create change and cause, individuals to recognize and engage themselves in this topic. Second, we were out there trying to create a brand that was trustworthy enough to give people access to information that would really change their lives, teaching them not necessarily that they should live, but how to live. And so many individuals in this space are just facing just dark moments. And we all have bad days. We all worry about our mental health. We all, have struggles. And it's how to navigate these moments successfully that helps us to stay safe, and we realize that you can't do this alone. You have to surround yourself with factors of positive influence to keep yourself safe. And so the whole campaign is focused on this, like starting a conversation, understanding warning signs, and being prepared to talk to individuals that may be considering or having suicidal thoughts, and how to navigate away from this and finding ways to help them live on. And that is a program that is, Jane, it hurts me that it exists, because you would hope that, we wouldn't need a program like this. But I'm so grateful for all the different entities and partners that are part of it, trying to engage a conversation to save lives. And you mentioned the need to measure the effectiveness. And measuring the effectiveness of programs like this is very challenging. I mean, at the end of the day, you're measuring, well, we're trying to save lives. So the reducing the number of attempts, reducing the number of fatalities are all very, very important to this equation. But the other piece that's incredibly important to us is recognizing that we're training individuals to have this conversation. So how do you go out there and teach people how to talk about this in safe environments? And how do you teach people to set up, protective factors in their lives in order to safeguard, the people that they love? And as we measure each of those, we see success. And if we see success there, then we know that at the very end of the road, we're going to have an impact on people's lives and the health and wellness that they get to experience.
Yeah, I love that. Someone just asked me how we measure the success of the policy project initiatives. And sometimes it's really tricky. It's easy to check a box when you say, well, we have period product dispensers in every school. It's a different thing when we're talking about child sexual abuse prevention education. And so some of these statistics and are hard to track, but I think that we can consider it a success when more people are talking about suicide prevention, when they're talking and being willing to share that they have those maybe thoughts and reach out. So taking the stigma and shame out of these conversations is a success for sure.
And I always look at it, Jen, that branding has a massive influence on that. That
Yeah.
you establish this brand can represent an increase in awareness to what the issue truly is, and then begin to educate the public, through this brand on what is it that they can do. And then you have to motivate them to actually engage the topic and practice these skills.
Yeah.
And ask them to repeat it long enough that it actually becomes a change in their behavior, and then it shifts the social norm. So there's a little bit of like science that goes into creating positive shifts for social norms.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. And I love that, it isn't just talking about it. It's actually, like you said, like creating awareness through branding and through images and through association. With this image reminds me that I can share with my friend if I have this thought that I don't feel safe by myself right now. Those things do have scientific evidence to back them up.
100%. Yes.
Well, this is amazing. I am thinking that our student ambassadors would love to hear how you create a brand. So how you take something that you are wanting to advocate for, create a brand, and create basically, would you call it a marketing campaign?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Branding has evolved into something much bigger than it was yesterday. I mean, when you ask the everyday person, what is a brand? They're going to go, well, it's the logo.
Right.
Or it's the name, and it's become so much more. And I think that the younger generation today understands branding better than almost anybody, I mean, you and I were talking earlier that like you have your Instagram page, or you have, your Twitter account, or whatever social channel you're on. And as you populate that channel with content, you're defining your brand. And for better or worse, people are going to know you for the collection of materials that you're willing to put out in the public, So if you're looking at it from that perspective of what a brand is, your brand becomes who you are, what is your message, what do you stand for, what values do you represent, and what good are you trying to create? And as you roll all those together, in your own personal brand, you begin to stand for something. And it's so much more than a logo or a name. It's an identity. And your identity defines your actions and your attitudes and really your long-term vision and strategy. And so as we create brands for, social causes or advocacy programs, we always look at it from the stance of like, we need to motivate a public to adopt a certain behavior. And as part of that, the brand has to mean something to the public. So do we focus the brand on the outcome, or do we focus the brand on the call to action, what we want people to do? And there's strategies for both directions. If we look at the suicide prevention program, we named it Live On, and Live On became the end goal for all of the efforts that we wanted people to understand the value that they have in life and how they can approach that to move forward through some of these dark challenges. Now, I tell you, as somebody who is professionally involved in creativity and graphic design and video production and content creation, when we created the Live On logo, it originally didn't ever have a logo. It had a name. And we asked people to take little Post-it notes and write the word Live On in their own personal handwriting. And we started using a whole collection of Live On Post-it notes on all the billboards, on all the digital ads, on all the social media. And they became a way of like personally endorsing the message so that it stood for something more than just a media campaign, but it was a rally cry for an entire community to put their name on it to make a difference.
Oh, that is so powerful. I can just envision all the different handwritings and pens or pencils, and it just is their own image. Yeah, that's powerful.
One of the things too, and I especially want to stress this to some of your younger audience that may be watching this, as you're thinking about branding, and maybe this is a career you want to go into or something you want to explore, in college. Your personal brand means so much, to work like this. And I look at all the work that the Policy Project does, and it represents not only the organization, but the people behind it. You stand for something, and as you're growing up, you're asking yourself the question, who am I and what do I stand for? And, what's important to me? What's my mission? What's my vision? As you make those decisions in life, you are defining your own brand. And what your brand is will carry much longer than high school or college, and even to your professional career, that like there's going to be a certain standard that you live by and that you will influence through the work that you do that becomes your brand, and it's really no different than the brand of some of the influencers we see on social media. But
Yeah.
you get to live it every day and stay true to who your brand is, not letting others influence, what you are going to stand for.
I love on that line. I studied fashion merchandising at BYU, and the importance of a rebrand. That if your brand isn't working for you, if you begin to do things that aren't exactly living up to who you really are, that there's always the option of a rebrand, a redirection to something better. Yeah. Yep. Sometimes you're like, oh wait, no, I think this isn't working for me anymore. And I can change and stand for something that really feels true to who I am.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And when you rebrand, it's not a revolution, like you're not flipping things upside down. You're building on the things that matter most and the things that worked for you, and so like I even watch like big companies, go through rebrands, and I've helped dozens of them, for very large organizations. And we always tell them, like, learn from the history, but let's look to the future. What can we take from the legacy to create a vision forward?
Yeah. Well, this has been really, really great. As we're wrapping up, is there any advice you'd want to give to these students who are wanting to go into branding and advertising? Any advice? Any last words? We'd love to just hear any last Steve Wright wisdom.
Yeah, wisdom. I would tell you, and I share this with a lot of the students I've taught over the years, and I've hired dozens of the students that I've been able to teach. And you need to become a student of life. I've been in the industry now 20 plus years, and I feel like I learn more today than I learned the first day of work. And you foster your passion for what you do and almost create a learning proving ground to continue to adopt new principles, new ideas, new directions, and recognizing that great ideas come from everywhere. I mean, I love it when I have a junior employee come in and go, I have this idea and it's a brilliant idea. And we find a way to execute it. Great ideas, don't come just from individuals. They come from collective bodies. And so surrounding yourself with individuals that are passionate, that they're innovative, that they're creative, you become part of that product. And so I encourage, the younger generation, the older generation, I mean, be willing to take those risks. Be willing to surround yourself with other incredibly smart people that will help you grow as an individual and foster your growth. And in some ways, they become mentors that will lead you to a very, very successful path in your life. And I would tell all of them, like, get as much digital experience as you can, because more and more we live in this digital world, that understanding how to leverage these digital assets for advocacy, for public service, to create a proving ground that will help make the world a better place. That's where it's going to happen. So I know your parents tell you get off your phones, less time on social media, which is true. And yes, listen to them, but understand where the value in that truly is.
I love that. I was just talking to a friend who would not want to call herself an influencer, but has tens of thousands of followers, and she uses her platform for good. And she was telling me, as she thinks about teens on social media, the difference that she sees is students and teenagers that use it for good, that actually are producing and not just consuming, really have a healthy usage. And I love that what you're suggesting is a productive usage where you're giving something on social media, not just consuming and taking.
There's an age-old that I use all the time that shares, if you can get someone's attention, what are you going to do with it? And it is a great question, because it is a sacred responsibility to get somebody's attention, because at that point you have an opportunity to influence. And will you influence for good?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great thought to end on. Thank you for joining us today. We're really excited about this. I think you've opened our minds to lots of avenues of ways to advocate with and for good, for social change. And I think all of us, especially all the students that are involved with the Student Ambassador Program, are highly motivated to impact the world around them for good. So I'm so glad that we've given them some tools to do that.
Absolutely. That's amazing.